Welcome back, everyone. We hope you're well fed and well rested because it's time for some tennis. And as you may have noticed, there's not three of us spread across. We're in this nice kind of block setup. I like this quite a bit more. There's something about I don't know, the balance of it all, And normally I would either make a joke or attack Steve in some sort of casual, passive aggressive way or say something nice to Candace. But I'm going to skip that because we have a guest today joining us on Eat Sleep Tennis for his first time. I think it's the first time he's been on a show in quite some time. You might know him as Matter Tips Tennis. You might know him as Vinny. You've almost certainly seen his work on Ace Previews, writing previews. He did a great job with Serrano the other day. Vinny, how are you? How are things in Germany?
Yeah, things are fine, especially after that Bogota final. So Osorio didn't only win us a few bets at Ace Previews, but also an outright for myself. So that's good. And yeah, thank you for keeping the standards of the show low and actually keeping me or putting me on the show. It's great and happy to be with you.
What do you mean low? We've got Alex on here, so you're fine.
Says the guy like in someone's closet somewhere. Where are you today, Steve? You look like you're in a closet.
No,
it was only sort of
it's too early. You've got me for back-to-back early mornings, so I'm just not set up properly. But that's okay. Look, I'm just surrounded now. I'm just down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen for anyone who's watching along live, surrounded by people who picked outrights in pretty much every other tournament. I think I got a whole bunch of semi-finalists, but thanks for letting me stay on for another week.
Indeed. And Candace, just to check in, how are you? How are things? You looked very nice yesterday. Took a picture in the red sweater, doing whatever you're doing in Idaho. How's everything going there in the Gem State?
I was working. I had, we have news out here in Idaho that I had to inform all of our Idahoans about. So that was the dress I was in. I was getting ready to go on air. I'm happy because PCB won. So that means we won something, which I think it might be only the second time. We've had some rough luck here to begin things. But I'm even happier because I know now that Vinny is buying dinner.
We really do. Let's jump in. We talked about men's tennis yesterday. We have one women's tournament. The Anning tournament has been postponed. So we're in Charlestown again. Hooray. Charlestown too. I don't know if you guys are excited, but I sure am not. We're going to look here at the top half of the draw. A little bit of a smaller tournament here. So again, we'll kind of go top and bottom half. Now, Vinny, you're the guest, and I'd like you to go first. And I know we said we're going to talk about the top half, but I know that you had a very specific and clear thought about the first quarter. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah. No. It was just no, because, you see the names, and Jabeur, obviously the best player in here, but at the number she's going to be probably at, she won't be value, I suppose. And assuming she gets out of it, I'm just not sure if she's there physically in a semifinal against Rogers or whoever comes out of the second quarter. So I'm just not sure if she's going to win it all. And if you look at these other names like Vogele, I think she's been in the semifinals here in 2012 or something. But these days are long gone. And then qualifiers, Christian, who has, I think, one win in 2021 against Di Lorenzo, who has no wins in 2021. Then Hibino and Misaki Doi, I can't pick any of these longer shots. So it's just a no for me in this first quarter.
How about the second quarter then? Was there a name that stuck out to you there?
Yeah, I went with Shelby Rogers, even though her match against Anisimova was not that impressive, and I really don't know what was wrong with her there. But she looked much better against Barty. And I just hope it was a one-off against Anisimova, and at home, when you look at the other names, I think she should get it done and be motivated as well in Charleston to get something done. And Claire Liu and Storm Sanders are two qualifiers that are not to be underestimated. But if you're Shelby Rogers with your serve and all the improvements this year, I think she should get it done. Yeah, then you have Danka Kovinic and Victoria Tomova, who both had good weeks this week. With Tomova getting to the semis in Bogota and Kovinic reaching the final here. And yeah, you don't know what the fatigue is going to be like. And Kovinic, that's a massive letdown spot in my opinion, coming from that final today. And I'm not sure if she gets this done 2 weeks in a row. Tomova the same, coming from Bogota. Yeah, I also don't really like that place in the draw with Kovinic and then maybe Lauren Davis, who's also good on these courts. We're only losing to Goff last week and taking out Cannon. So I think if I would take another one, that would be Lauren Davis here. Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Rogers.
I like what you said about Jabeur. She is, on pedigree, on paper, you look at a lot of the stats and performances. Jabour's the best player in the field here, but she's never won an event on the WTA level. The only final she's ever been in Moscow, played a very fun 3-set match with Daria Kasatkina, but about halfway, if not earlier, through the third set, started to cramp up and just has a lot of physical challenges, if you will, to try to be nice about it. So as much as I think she is the favorite to win this tournament, and we'll talk maybe about her a little bit from a value perspective more later, just tough to really count on her, even though the rest of the names are maybe less than inspiring. What do you see here, Steve?
I see a draw that Kiki Burton's would normally take advantage of if it were any other year and she weren't injured.
Wherever she is.
Wherever she is at the moment. Look, I know that there was all that talk, as we just discussed there, about Jabeur. She obviously did have lofty expectations at the start of the year. I think she was pretty adamant, on trying to break into the top 10. If she wants to actually back up those words, I think these are the type of draws that she needs to take advantage of. I know that there are probably some question marks on her towards the latter end of the tournament, but I think when you look at her play and you look at what's on offer here, at least up to the semi-final, it's if you can get a decent price on her in the outright, I think it'll put you in a decent position to figure out a place to end up in a profitable spot. I think when you look at that second quarter there, and I agree with Vinny about Kovinic, I think for a player who probably hasn't been the most consistent over the last couple of years, to make that final, deal with what obviously occurred there, and then to be able to back up is a question mark that I have against some players there who can play some quite consistent tennis. I think when you look at this and you look at it on face value, I don't see. My top pick would be that Jabeur and Rogers were to meet in a semi-final. I think I would be going with Jabeur here to get through this half. But my biggest concern for her would be were she to face Rogers in a semi-final. Otherwise, I think she should be able to. Should be a very heavy favorite against most others there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Candace, what are you seeing in the top half of this draw?
I mean, many similar things to what you guys have described. I think Jabeur is going to make it out of her quarter, no problem, just because of the sheer lack of depth there that she'll be going against. She's an interesting one to me because I agree with what you guys are saying about the questions of her going through a full tournament, and in this sense, doing it in back-to-back weeks. And yet she's also a player who typically plays pretty frequently, and typically I expect a fairly consistent level from. So there's something there within the confines of one tournament that seems to be kind of a barrier she's trying to get over. Whereas on a week-to-week basis, oftentimes she's in there, most every week, and we have learned to expect her to play consistently good tennis. So she's intriguing in that nature. I agree that this is the type of draw she should take advantage of, because it doesn't come much easier than this, but there's enough doubt there to be a little bit concerned at the prices. I understand the appeal for Shelby Rogers. I had her winning a couple matches here, but I'm going to lean towards Lauren Davis. I have the two of them meeting against each other. It's been a number of years, I believe, since they have faced each other. But I liked what I saw from Lauren last week. Ultimately she went down to Goff, who you'd expect her to, I suppose, and who's not here. So for me, I was impressed by what I saw, especially when she beat Kennan. So I'm looking for a little more from Lauren Davis, and I look for her to make it out of that second quarter.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the names that have popped up. If I'm attacking the second quarter, I think it is the seeds there, either Rogers or Davis. Jabeur, though, again, like I said, just looks like the best player in this field. And I wonder if her being here shows to the fact that maybe she's trying to win this tournament instead of going to Europe and getting prepared for some of those clay events. I don't know. We spent some time before the show talking about some of the money line odds that she might have going through here. And there honestly might be some value on her to win this tournament at like 3.5 or 4-1 or better, which, although there's not a lot of odds out, have popped up a couple places, but just a lot of, qualitative stuff, if you will, that kind of scares me in this spot. So it's just a tough quarter to attack. If I look at my bracket, though, I've got Ons Jabeur beating Shelby Rogers here in the top half. Any other thoughts, guys, on the top section of the draw before we jump into the bottom?
I do have a question. I don't know if anyone has the answer for this. If you had to pick one unseeded player that could potentially make a run through this half, who would you go with? And I'll preface it with, I actually think, and part of my, not lack of appeal, but why I haven't gone for Rogers is I'm a little worried that she probably has one of the more competitive first round matches with McNally. I guess the other one that kind of maybe stands out, and I know that Vinny mentioned that the win rate between the two hasn't been great to start the year, but Christiane back in North America playing, she can be streaky. You can maybe catch her at a bigger price. Whether anyone thinks that herself or McNally or anyone else can make a run through here.
Do we know if Christiane is actually 100% fit again with her shoulder injury?
Do we ever know
I
that?
Because that might keep me off. Because since she's back on tour, she did not really, impress.
She hasn't looked great, and I think, when you look through there, I mean, none of the qualifiers give you maybe a lot of confidence, but I think I don't know whether it's just me waiting for McNally to take that next step and becoming a little bit frustrated with it. But I just wonder if, there is the ability, as we said, it is a bit of a funny tournament before that European clay swing, whether there is someone who can make a run like Kovanic did last week.
I would take the winner of the qualifier match in the second quarter. Lure Sanders there, again, they've had a few matches here to warm up a little bit. And although I downplay the qualifier advantage since we're here for a second week in a row, if both of them are playing well, they might be able to, make Shelby Rogers work. And, maybe she's a little tired after last week, after playing McNally. Again, kind of doing some devil's advocate stuff here. But give me the winner of that qualifier match if I have to pick someone that's unseeded.
Yeah, I
Anything
agree.
else,
And that draw really, the draw really kind of annoyed me because, you're right. McNally, Liu, Sanders, all could be value, and I would take them if they were in the first quarter, but I
just not right next to each other.
Just to sum it up again, Jabeur just the only player in the first quarter, in my opinion, and even though I picked Rogers, McNally, that all the players around her with McNally, Liu, and Sanders might be value as well.
I think that's a good segue because there isn't another annoying part of the draw in the bottom half. We'll talk about the third quarter first probably, but the fourth quarter is just full of players that we wish we could pick. Instead, here is the third quarter. We've got Brengel, we've got Cornet, Sharma's in there, Wang Yafan, a few other names, the young Fruvertova. I don't know if this is necessarily the best surface for her, but I'll start with you this time, Steve. What do you think about this bottom half here in general?
It's a bit of a mixture, really. I mean, it's, again, like we talked about with that top half, there's opportunities here for players to earn some decent ranking points, and there won't be that many opportunities this year, I think, when you've got tournaments of this level where Lynette will be a 2 seed and Brengel will be an 8 seed. Who takes advantage of that is another question entirely. I mean, there's some names that do stand out that have played some relatively decent tennis over the start of the year. You've got that a bit like, as you said there, with that second quarter, this fourth quarter having Towson versus Samsonova in the first round is a tricky thing to get started. I didn't mind the efforts of Tomljanovic last week, although she did end the week a little disappointingly that she is starting to maybe play a little bit more consistently. But here it's probably trying to marry up people who played last week and people who've come in from Bogota. It's a bit of a jumble. But look, if I had to pick someone and looking at some of the odds, that there aren't too many odds out at the moment, but maybe trying to go a little bit wider and maybe take a Tomljanovic or someone similar. I don't think Zarazul was overly convincing last week, losing to Navarro. And I think Towson showed in Bogota she didn't quite handle maybe the altitude and the conditions and the travel that came with that. So there may be a spot there to maybe take advantage, but there's not a lot that's jumping off the page to me.
Very interested to see how Towson does coming off her first tournament as the odds-on favorite and losing, a tough match there in round one. Candace, what do you see here in the bottom half? I know that, as much as I kind of foreshadowed some fourth quarter discussion, I think there was a name in the third that stuck out to you.
There was. I mean, nothing to do with her play recently, really. But Madison Brangle's a little bit interesting to me just because of her draw. I don't think it's the most difficult on the planet. She'd have Vigilyantseva on the first round. And then after that, you're looking at the winner of Wang or Sharma. I mean, even the other seed in that section being Elise Cornet, she had a few pretty long, tough matches last week. So, how rip and ready she is to go again, especially if she has a tough one or two before that. She is a player that is prone to get herself into some of those long matches, especially on clay. So sometimes it leaves her a little bit vulnerable as you get deeper into tournaments. So I think Brangle has a great draw. I can't say she's been playing fantastic tennis lately because she hasn't. But I'll maybe give her the benefit of the doubt because she had Lauren Davis right off the bat last week. So from just a sheer draw perspective with somebody who is going to be a large price, she's a little bit interesting to me. The bottom corner is a mess. I don't like anybody in there. Anybody who would have been remotely interesting is playing somebody else who would have been interesting, and that kind of ruins it for me.
Yeah, I like what you said about that section on the third quarter, but I'll put a pin in that and let Vinny jump in. How do you see the bottom half of this draw shaking out?
Yeah, it's similar to the first half. Like the third quarter is, for me, the third quarter is a mess because I don't really like to pick any one of these players. Like Brangle, yeah, she played a lot on green clay, and I looked it up earlier. She has a 66-48 win-loss stats, which is good, yeah. But I would never pick her on an outright market. Yeah, she's playing Vigilyantseva, who I'm not sure what's wrong with her since a lot of years now. So yeah, I also understand that point from Candace, because Wang, yeah, another player that's struggling this year, and Sharma, yeah, let's just not talk about that last week. Will be pretty tough to come back from this one. Not sure if she's mentally prepared for that. And then Martin Sova, also erratic player, can't pick her on an outright market. Navarro, yeah. I kind of like Navarro here. She's a wild card for the second week in a row now. Yeah, there was a lot of yelling last week, I know, because her father actually owns the tournament as a billionaire and, of course, gave her daughter the wild card.
And I think, sorry, just to jump in, Vinny, I think that's obviously, there are, we have had a lot of questions about this tournament and the fact that there's a second Charleston tournament. If anyone wins out of this, it's Navarro.
Yeah, I think she's played pretty well and also beat Sarasua. Not a bad, a good win, yeah. And lost to Kudermetova, not a bad loss. And she also had quite a good junior career. Like she was in the Roland Garros final, losing against Fernandez. Was a number 3 junior, I think. So yeah, she's got a good game already, and I wouldn't underestimate her here. But again, for taking her on an outright market, it's just a little too early, I think. And then Fruhvirtova against Cornet could be an interesting matchup. Cornet played better last week, I think. And Fruhvirtova, just one of the biggest talents around, already has 2 tournament wins on the ITF tour this year. And yeah, the funny thing about this matchup, just let me finish that. Cornet actually played Fruhvirtova's sister last year in one of the UTS Muratoglu events. And the younger sister of Fruhvirtova is 14 years old now, and Linda is 15 years old now. So yeah, these are really some of the biggest talents around, and Muratoglu raised them. But yeah, again, it's just too early to pick them outright here. But it could be tricky for Cornet, this first round matchup. And yeah, now I talked a lot about all these players, not picking them, but yeah. I actually liked Tomljanovic, Tauson, and Samsonova in the 4th quarter. And yeah, can't really pick any of them because they're all playing each other. Yeah. I actually went with Tomljanovic because, yeah, she's not playing in the Tauson versus Samsonova match. So I actually give her that first win. But yeah, if any of these girls would have been allocated in the 1st quarter, I would have picked all of them, I guess. So it's really a mess, all of this draw.
Yeah, it's tough again here. I think that the 3rd quarter is the most attackable one. I'll just take a second to enjoy the fact that Magda Linette is the 2 seed in a WTA tournament. 2021, you continue to surprise and impress me with the things that we are capable of. The 4th quarter, again, not to repeat everything you guys said there. God, you look at the top half of that quarter. I love all 4 of those players. I know that you think Tomljanovic is going to blow through Zarazua, but I'm a Zarazua truther, or whatever the right word there is. I love her. I think that there's just always a little value on her, but that's a really tough section. So I'm going to go back up to the top. Like I said, Candace, I like where you were looking. I think that the 3rd quarter is where to attack, and I think I'm going to look for Astra Sharma there. I think that Yafan Wang has just really struggled, honestly. And although she beat Sharma, I think it was in Monterrey, not Guadalajara. I just like Sharma here. I think these courts are going to be nice for her. I think this is a tournament where she's going to be focused about winning here versus doing whatever's going to happen next week for her. I think that this match is a little more winnable, and I think she can take care of the winner of Brengel, Vikely, and Saban as a real solid shot to win that quarter. And if she does, maybe that 4th quarter kind of takes care of itself, almost the way last week we saw one of the better 4th quarters. Just all those good players kind of beat each other up. You saw in Bogota, Tormo got knocked out, and then it all kind of took care of itself. And then Zidansek kind of walks through the 3rd quarter there. So I'm hoping Sharma can do something similar there. Or, again, I like what you say, Candace, with Brengel. I actually think Vikely and Saban might be a little tighter there, but somebody in that top 4 there, and I'm going to pick Sharma. Any other thoughts, guys, on the top half or questions here before we jump into our picks to win, some value, and people to avoid?
All good from here. I'll take the silence as we can jump on in. So we'll go through all our picks for the tournament now. I'll lead off first with the ace, and it's probably clear from my conversation that I did say Jabeur there. I think is a great chance. I put a little asterisk next to it. I think if you look at some of the outright prices that are on offer at the moment, I think, as I said, she may not win the tournament, but she should be able to make a relatively deep run to put yourself in a decent position to figure out a way to make it relatively profitable for you. And look, for her, it is going to be a big week for her to see if she can actually back up that talk from her at the start of the year as to whether she can, kind of make that next push, I guess, to a little bit further up the rankings, although the rankings are a little bit harder to read at the moment with the changes due to COVID. We might jump next to Candace. Who is your ace for the tournament?
I already spoke about her, but my ace is going to be Lauren Davis for the tournament. Love the odds from the very few books that we have that I've seen. Oh, I can't say that. I guess one of the books didn't even have her in there. They put me through a fright after Flipkins Gate. Didn't want to have to experience the same thing again. But I mean, maybe I could just now be like, you know what? She was 5,000 to 1 for that book. So I think she has a realistic chance, though. If she were to meet Jabeur, obviously it would come much later in the tournament. And if we are projecting that Jabeur could be feeling a little bit fatigued by that point, then she should be able to beat her. She's in a pocket of the draw that is testing without being overpowering, I suppose I would say. She plays well on the surface, and I didn't mind at all what I saw from her last week. I think her draw this week is easier than what she had last week, and the price is right because she's in the same half, I think, as Jabeur. So I'm going to go with Lauren Davis.
Perfect. Sounds good. Now, Vinny, who have you gone for as your ace for the tournament?
Yeah, as I also said before, I'm picking Shelby Rogers because even though McNally, Liu, Sanders, Davis should be all competitive matches, but I just think at home Rogers should be motivated. She clearly is the best player in this section if she's on her game. And I just hope that match with Anisimova was like one-off, and yeah, that's why I picked her. And Jabeur will come out of the first quarter, but she might struggle again physically, and maybe someone gets her 2-3 sets or something, and then I think Rogers can take advantage of that. So yeah, with all the improvements I saw from Rogers this year, I just hope she'll be motivated to get a win here.
Definitely. And now, look, Alex, I nearly forgot you, but who's your ace for the tournament?
Pretty simple here, and I'll try to keep it short. Ons Jabeur, she's the best player. I think that this is a spot for her to try to pick up her first tournament win. Just the best player in this field, has arguably the easiest draw. I don't see any reason that she should be looking ahead next week to Stuttgart or Istanbul or somewhere else. I think she'd be looking to grab 250 points here and kind of move on with her year. So I expect her to be locked in, and I think she's just the clear favorite and my pick to win.
Perfect. And we'll roll straight into the value picks. Who's your value pick, Alex?
I mentioned it there as I look, for value here. I want to try to avoid Ons Jabeur as long as I can, so that we try to look at the bottom half. The fourth quarter is really tough. A lot of good players in there, and as I mentioned, the third quarter there, Candice likes Madison Brengle, but I grabbed Astra Sarma. She's in the 40 to 50 to 1 range there. She's a big favorite in her first match. I think she can beat her opponent in the second round there, and I expect either Alizé Cornet, maybe Martin Kova's there. Again, a very winnable quarterfinal match. Hopefully the fourth corner kind of takes care of itself, but at 40 to 1, at 50 to 1, we'll have a chance to buy out if she could win this quarter, and I think she has a good chance to do that.
Perfect. Sounds good. Now, Candice, who have you gone for? Someone in a similar section to Alex's, of course?
Same portion of the draw. We're going to go with Madison Brengle. As we spoke about before, it's just purely a draw play. She hasn't really shown me anything in her tennis to suggest that she could win the tournament. But sometimes when you get players who are struggling a little bit, it just takes a draw of players that are playing even worse than you to help you get the job done. So I'm going to go with Madison Brengle as my value pick.
Perfect. And Vinny, who have you gone for as your value pick?
Yeah, I had to take someone of that fourth quarter section, and I took Tomljanovic just because she's not competing in the Tauson-Samsonova match. That is unless you have a book that offers either Tauson or Samsonova at 30 or 50 to 1, which we just witnessed. There are such books, and I will look stupid in a few minutes when I talk about my overvalued player, but I actually also bet Clara Tauson because at one book, Betano, I don't know if it's available for anyone outside of Germany or Europe, but they actually hung Tauson at 40 to 1. And yeah, if that would be the case on any of the big books, that would be the clear value pick. But yeah, assuming that won't be the case, if odds show up on the bigger books, I'm taking Tomljanovic.
Now, I wish we had the recording of all of us just before we came on live, because there was about a 4-minute patch there where we all just had to be quiet and let Vinny do his thing when he saw Towson at 40-1 and Samson over at a big price as well. Looking at my value pick, I have gone with the same. I've gone with Tomljanovic as well. I think, trying to find value in that other side of the draw to Rogers and Jabeur. And like Vinny said, Towson and Samson over are playing each other in the first round, so she would only have to face one of those two. There's probably a bigger value spot there, just looking at the odds that are currently available. There aren't too many at the moment, and we can update those as they come out at some of the bigger books as well. Jumping over to the unforced errors. Now, Candice, you didn't have one for the unforced errors, and mine, I'll just quickly get mine out of the way. Mine's Astra Sharma, if she has the same chair umpire again. Tennis is hard enough as it is, trying to win games at the WTA level, let alone when you're up love 30 and the umpire thinks you're down 30 love. So hopefully Astra has a little bit better luck of it this week, but I think the moral of the story is if the chair umpire isn't there to call the score, to keep score, they're running out of things to do with Hawkeye coming in. That in a lot of places, they're starting to run out of jobs. So hopefully she doesn't end up with the same chair umpire again this week. Fingers crossed. And even the same supervisor, to be honest. Alex, who have you got as your unforced error?
The champion of Bogota. She finished second last year, won the title just a few hours ago. Maria Camila Osorio Serrano is going to have to take an 8-hour flight to get from Bogota to Charleston here. I assume they will give her the Champions Day off and let her play on Tuesday instead of making her play on Monday again, just the day afterwards. But I expect after her first title, especially in her home country in a big way, I actually wonder if she's even going to make that flight. I wonder if we'll see her withdraw either later tonight, early tomorrow morning local time in Charlestown. So giving her a pass this week after that title, if she does show up, it should just be a brutal fatigue spot for her. So happy to give her a pass.
That sounds fair enough. And look, I would be a little bit surprised if she didn't make it. I mean, she's not a top player, and she's been given an opportunity into a WTA draw, straight into it. So it will be interesting to see if she does show up and then what she can do there. Now, Vinny, who have you got as your unforced error?
Yeah, I picked Osorio Serrano's opponent, who is Magdalinette, and yeah, she just has a green clay record of 1-5. And even though she was competitive against Anisimova, just don't like her place in the draw as the second seed. But even against Errani second round or Towson, Samsonova, Tomljanovic third round, I don't think she'll make it far in this tournament.
I like it when two people, you're up against Alex in that first round, so that's going to be good.
Not necessarily. I also doubt Osorio, actually. All the media today.
A lot of doubt.
Maybe her grandma wants to have a dinner tonight.
I just don't like that whole section.
First title is something special, especially for a 19-year-old, and maybe she won't make it to Charleston.
Hopefully she has a better run of it flight-wise than some of the other players.
To see. Does anybody know what the paycheck is for the first round in Charleston, too?
I don't know about
Charleston. She thinks about paychecks, but
I just wonder if it at least covers the flight.
You'd hope so. Now, overvalued players. We'll start with you, Candice. Who have you got as your overvalued player for the tournament?
Oh, I don't think I'm alone on this one. My overvalued player is Sara Errani. She's been a popular one for us on that front recently. Don't see that she's playing good tennis, or not even that much playing at all, to be honest with you. And she's going to meet Christina McHale right off the bat, which is, I don't think, going to be necessarily easy for her either. Not much to like. We have a lot of players in here who maybe haven't been playing a lot recently, or maybe their level of play recently has been poor, but at least you can find pockets in the draw where they're winnable. And I think Sara Errani is on the bottom end of both. And she's relatively short. I mean, again, we've only had a couple of books that we've seen prices at, but I think we saw her at like 19 or 20
In the teens, less than 20.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah, look, it is a little bit on the short side now. Alex, do you have anything to add here on the overvalued player front since you've gone down a similar path?
Not too much. Again, a player coming from Bogota here who's had a very tough year before last week is in the toughest quarter of the draw. As you start to look, Mikhail, I don't know how that's going to go, but if Serrano does get here, plays well in that first match, is able to win, is going to be a tough second-round opponent. Maybe it's Towson, maybe it's Tomljanovic, maybe it's Samson over there in the second. She gets the winner of the third quarter, and maybe owns Jabor to win the final, and she's less than 20-1. Nah, I wouldn't bet that even with your money. If you want to bet it, let me know. I'll give it to you.
No, you're not taking my money. Now, Vinny, who have you gone with as an overvalued player? Now, I think I do know this, but I have been nice, and I've put a little asterisk next to it.
Yeah, so thank you for not making me look that stupid, but yeah, depending on which book you look at, the first book we checked, Clara Towson was the third favorite at 7-1. And at that price, I decided to take her as the overvalued player just because I don't see her being a major favorite against Samsonova, Tomljanovic, or even Errani, even though you just downgraded her a bit. But yeah, on clay, the game should suit clay, but she just lost to Seguel last week in Bogota, which is not that great, and the surface change might still have something, might be a problem for her. And yeah, green clay, I don't think she played on that surface at all so far, and so that's why I picked her, just because of the place in the draw. But then again, I just bet her at 30-1 on another book.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think when you do look at this, and all our opinions would change on all players based on the odds, and that's kind of why we do what we do and how we do what we do. The reason I put an asterisk next to Towson for your name, Vinny, is because I did the same thing for me. At 40-1, I would definitely play her. But looking at some of the other odds and what we're assuming will come out of the majority of bookmakers, she does look a little bit too short, and it does kind of tie in a bit, I think, with what I've said in some previous episodes, and even last week. I think I talked about Alcaraz and Mazzetti on the ATP side, is that we do know at their best that these players are very good and they do have a very high ceiling. It's more around maybe not having the consistency to maybe match it, that match to match, and to be able to maintain it. And that's where also week to week it becomes a little bit trickier. So I think Towson does look a little bit short looking at that. And just to follow up your question before, Alex, around the first round for Charleston 2, it's $2,770 if you lose in the first round.
Okay, that covers the flight. What the heck? Might as well show up, collect the points, and enjoy the free trip to sunny Charleston.
Well, maybe covers the flights if she's flying by herself and not bringing anyone with her. There can't be too much on top of that, but we will see what unfolds there.
Just bring grandma, and then she can cook for you there.
That is another way to save money. Very smart. Very, very smart. All righty. I think that wraps up our WTA episode because we only have the one tournament to talk about. Oh, that's right. It's obviously going to be a pretty big couple of months now. Basically, what are we in the second week of April now, heading into the third week, and we've got a couple of months almost until Roland Garros. So a lot of the tennis is obviously going to be on clay over the next couple of weeks, and it's going to be interesting to see how that all unfolds. A big thank you to Vinny for jumping on and making our screen in particular look far smoother with 4 people on it. But on top of that, also have some incredibly good advice for everyone following along. So make sure you do follow Vinny at Mattertip Tennis. I always used to put the S in between the tip and tennis, but there's no S there. So thank you very much for jumping on, and good luck, particularly with the 30-1. Was it 30-1 Samsonova or the 40-1 Towson?
60-1 Samsonova.
Oh, 60-1. I just knew it was a big number. Yeah. Thanks to everyone who has watched in live or is listening to this back on any of the podcast platforms. Thank you to Candace and Alex, as always. Any last words from anyone before we wrap this up? For anyone listening to the podcast, everyone has just shaken their head as no. We will wrap it up there, and we will be back shortly with the next tournaments. I think we got what is on offer next week. It's all kind of a bit of a blur for me at the moment. We'll have a bit of a look, but we'll be back next week to cover off all the tournaments at the ATP and WTA tour level. So we will catch you then.